Now, I always tell everyone, my clients, or whenever I speak at a webinar, I always tell the participants that employment law is an area that all of us should know, at least have some basic understanding, simply because all of us are either employers or employees. So it's very important for all of us to have at least a basic knowledge on employment law. So now, let me just start off by taking you through the types of contract. Now, there's always been some confusion as to the types of contract which constitutes an employment contract, whether it's a contract of service or a contract for service. Now, what is a contract of service? A contract of service is an agreement whereby one person or one party agrees to employ another person as an employee. So where an organization enters into a contract with an individual, and that organization agrees to employ that individual as an employee of the organization, and that individual agrees to serve the organization as an employee. That constitutes a contract of service, and a contract of service, for all intents and purposes, is considered an employment contract under Section 2 of the Employment Act 1955. And a person who is employed under a contract of service enjoys statutory protection provided by the employment laws in Malaysia. And in the event there's any breach of the person's terms of employment, then that person can actually seek appropriate remedies either in the labor court or in the industrial court. So most of you who are employed in an organization, your employment would constitute a contract of service. That's an employment contract. Now, on the other hand, we also have a contract for service. What is a contract for service? A contract for service is where a party engages an independent contractor to carry out a particular task or particular assignment for a fee, for a remuneration. An example that I can give you is where, as a homeowner, there are some issues with your electricity supply in your house. For example, there's a faulty circuit in your house. You then engage an electrician to undertake some repair works, and you pay him for his services. This would constitute a contract for service. When it comes to a contract for service where you engage an independent contractor to carry out a particular service, a particular assignment for a fee, if there is a breach, for example, all the independent contractor can do is to seek appropriate remedies for breach of contract. So, for example, you enter into a contract for service with a contractor, you engage the contractor to carry out some services at your house, for example, to mend a faulty circuit, and you agree with him that you're going to pay him so much for his services. Then after he has carried out his services, you don't pay him as what you undertook to, as what you promised. Then that independent contractor can seek remedy for a breach of contract. But that contractor cannot bring any claims against you in the industrial court because a contract for service is not an employment contract under the law. Now, moving on from the types of contract, I will now deal briefly with the types of employment. Broadly, there are two types of employment. One is a permanent employment, and the other is a fixed-term employment. Now, dealing with permanent employment, what is a permanent employment? A permanent employment is where an organization engages an individual under a contract of employment where there are express or implied terms set up. This is basically your contract of employment, which contains various terms such as wages and terms relating to your wages, your leave entitlements, your healthcare benefits, and also your contributions towards a retirement plan, such as your EPF and SOCSO. A permanent employee, however, does not enjoy employment for life. So if you're employed under a permanent contract, it does not mean that you are going to be employed for your lifetime. In most employment contracts, there would be a retirement age. So once you hit your retirement age, your contract of employment would naturally come to an end, unless it is mutually extended by the employer, and as an employee, you agree for your employment contract to be extended. And a probationer is also considered a permanent employee. And moving on, we also have fixed term employment. This is quite common these days, where many organizations, many companies, many businesses engage employees on a fixed term employment. What is a fixed term employment? Fixed term employment is where a person is engaged for a specific duration or a specific period of time. And in the employment contract, there would be a start date and an end date. And the contract of employment will usually automatically end upon the expiration of the period stipulated in the contract. So for example, you enter into a 1-year contract with a particular person. So your contract will say, for example, your contract has a start date of 1st January 2021 and an end date of 31st December 2021. So it's a 1-year contract. The contract will automatically end on the 31st of January 2021. So that person will no longer be an employee of the organization with effect from 1st January 2022, unless that contract of employment is extended. And usually a company or an organization will enter into a fixed term employment for temporary jobs. For example, due to the absence of a permanent staff, you have employed somebody and that person has left. And while you find a suitable candidate, maybe you want to just employ somebody on a temporary basis for a fixed duration of say 1 year or 2 years, you then enter into a fixed term employment. Or for example, you just want to employ a person for a particular project or particular task, and that person's duties and responsibilities will end on the completion of the project. Then you may then enter into a fixed term employment with that person, where you perhaps can employ that person for the duration of the contract. It is, however, important to note that a person employed under a fixed term employment would also enjoy similar benefits as a permanent employee. So a person employed under a fixed term employment would also have rights to monthly remuneration, would have entitlement to leave, would have entitlement to statutory contribution by the employer. So all the benefits that a permanent employee would have, a fixed term employee would also enjoy such benefits and would enjoy protection under the law.